Greetings. This is Robby Garner coming to you from January the 3rd, 2017. Today, I found a notebook that um, was under a table for a long time, and I forgot about it, and a cat barfed on it, so it's actually seen better days. It's got a lot of empty pages in there though, so if I can get the barf off, maybe I'll put some more stuff in there. Um, I used to keep notebooks um, for regular use. I never kept a diary really, but if I had ideas for song lyrics, or if I had song lyrics, sometimes they just come out. I would write them down, and that's how I would secure them for future purposes. And this book is like that. I've just flipping through here, I can see at least 4 or 5 songs coming out of this in the very near future. Um, I've always found it easier to write uh, music to fit words, um, although I'm also pretty good at fitting words to music. So um, my wife has to put up with um, me early in the morning. When I wake up, I start wanting to get musical, and I sing, pop songs with different lyrics. Um, you know, Usually something really mundane about the coffee maker, or what we're having for breakfast, or whatever the cats are doing at the time. Um, but it's nice to discover these old treasure troves of ideas of days past. The first part of the notebook is filled with um, a description of an AI that I started writing probably around 2002, somewhere along there. It was not really connected to my most accomplished program, Albert 1, um, although it does bear similarity to Albert 2. Albert 2 was designed in Dataflex, which is kind of an unusual tool to use for AI development, because um, usually when people think of AI, they think of complex data structures and being able to attach corpora about semantics and the meaning of words and how they interrelate and that sort of thing. But back in the early days of my work, back around 1994, I started thinking about how to make a database driven machine that could use the relations in a relational database fully, so that um, memories would become ideas, and ideas would become thoughts, and thoughts become deeds. And the kind of deeds that I eventually wound up thinking of were related to the web browser, and how to control the web browser in order to do things on the internet. Um, and that led to some spin-offs and some other ideas. But the gist of it was that I built a hierarchical data structure in files that were related to each other from the most specific information down to the least applicable. And by that, I mean keyword matches and pattern matching. Pattern matching is generally, thought of as a sentence with a wildcard embedded somewhere. I like blank, or she blank did that, or excuse me, I just got a notice of something. There's no reason to toss that out. Everybody, for the most part, believes in this idea that if you use that sort of technique to match patterns and associate them with a fixed reply, that that's Eliza or Alice, and that you're recreating the past. But it's just one tool in the tool belt. It doesn't have to be the only method for forming a reply. And in fact, there's no reason you can't have several of those be applied as filters. The key to its usefulness is not letting it talk to strangers and picking up garbage and obscenities. The key is to be very specific about what you put into those templates. If you make the templates so that they filter and direct further stages of the output, you get a much more intelligent response. Those templates can make the difference between solving a math question or just picking a reply at random, because that's not what you want to do. You don't really want to just respond at random or pick random choices. And so you go down the hierarchy. You go toward closer and closer to having an exact match. Okay. So if you say, what time is it in London right now? And the computer finds that appealing, or finds a match, you can have the exact time computed and displayed for you. That's not the same as just having some stock reply. That's actually computing a result, which doesn't sound very intelligent. But if you think about it as just an example of how getting the right question picked from memory, you can have a better result. And then the next step in the hierarchy is putting that in context. Part of having a interactive AI and enjoying it is having the AI be able to learn things as you talk to it. If you have a system where you're going to have to go back later and identify all the missed responses and add a correct reply so that next time in a million years, when somebody says the exact same thing, they're going to get that canned response. That's not really getting us anywhere. It's fun to play with, and a lot of people spend a lot of time editing replies. But what I would prefer to do is have not just one big large pool of categories that you are going to pick somewhat reasonably, but instead have the bigger pool be static things that are always static, like what is the capital of Greece? And you get Athens. You can be pretty sure that you won't have to edit that for a while. If you do, it's just because something big changed. But you don't want to have to change every little occurrence of your program's name or of your name or every reference that you want to a certain question that may be asked in several different ways. That's not a good way to spend your time. So what I do is I have an auxiliary file that is even more specific than the specific, because it's got a context. If you have, and this is a test of whether your machine is accurate or has a reason to be in existence. If you have one response, do you have the next response? That's n and n plus 1. If you do, you have the beginning of a continuance of a conversation. And so you build this auxiliary file that has responses to your responses. And they're conditional. The condition is based on observations that can be made from a conversation or that can be learned from a teacher who interacts with your program knowingly and has permission to add records. And I usually use some symbol, like a special character at the beginning of the sentence, to mean that I'm correcting the response that was given. And what this allows is that you can sit down and have a conversation with your own program, and when it says something you don't like or that is incorrect, you type special character result, and you can, in the simplest form, that just replaces the context, the non-context version or the other context with a new context. If you want to take that even further, you can add qualifiers to the response that you're adding. And those qualifiers could be the value of a variable, and variables can be picked up during the conversation if you make your program so that it can do that. Um, Variables could be the time of the day or who they were talking to. Um, for instance, um, if I ask where do I live, and my name is Simon, the program should come back and say Horley. If I ask the same question and it knows me as Robby, it should come back and say Cedartown. It should know that Robby lives in Cedartown. You could even have it so that if I ask that question, it would come back and say, "Are you the Robby from Cedartown?" And I could say yes, and then it would know. It would know which Robby I was, because it just picked up yes to the value of, "Are you the Robby from Cedartown?" And some of you may be going, "Wait a minute, this is just stimulus response programming." And it is. It's Pavlov's dogs. It's behaviorism. This is how you make a program understand what you're saying to it without building a dictionary or having to use somebody else's dictionary and still not quite getting it right. Because even if you find, WordNet or something like that, those are all good general knowledge kind of things to know, that a dog is a mammal and that sort of thing. And get a paragraph description of a dog. If you say, "What is a dog?" and then WordNet says, blah, 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 and it's like, that's not very human, for one thing, which may not matter to you. You may want WordNet. But for me, it's a lot more fun to be able to sit there and teach it what I want it to know. I find little humor in sitting and talking to something that's a dictionary. I can go to the internet and look up anything I want to know there. I'm not building a chatbot to be a knowledge source. Although, for what it's worth, you can build an interface to WordNet or any other web-based tool. That was the thing I was talking about in the beginning of this, where I was talking about using the browser. Back in my early days of programming with Windows, one of the easiest ways to get a hold of the internet from within my program was to use a COM object and manipulate the web browser to send queries to other programs. And that's still basically how it's done today, except now there's, depending on what programming language you use, there's all these other ways to access the internet, jQuery and SOAP, and you can have specialized programs of your own sitting out there waiting for a query from a client that you built, or you can use open source things like Google and Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a good tool If you want to, you can set it up like this. You can make your program have, wait, hang on. Okay. You can make your program have trigger mechanism. Like you can have it so that you can say, look up so and so on Wikipedia, and it will spawn a query to Wikipedia using the subject of so and so and display the results back to you. Or pop up a browser and let you take it from there. That's a particularly useful way to do it if you're using voice recognition, speech recognition, let's say. Um, I I don't mind having a pop-up, you know. I would not under any means put out a web-based chatbot that's going to pop up ads, because that drives me insane. It I you know the internet has gotten to be an annoying clickbait problem. You know, if you're going to make something that just uh, whose sole purpose is to display Google ads ad infinitum, please don't. I hate that, and I will not use a product that does that. There's just no reward in having to continually click something, and still have crap popping up that you don't want to see. That's annoying as hell. Don't make your programs do that. Maybe that's a way to make money, because it's hard to make money on the internet. Contrary to what people believe, you know, you can't, unless you've got mega traffic to your website, you can't make money with ads. Most of us who don't have really popular ideas, you know, and I address myself as one of them, you can't make popular websites that are gonna just generate cash by showing ads. And if you try to, it's just an annoyance to your users. If you've got to make money from an ad, you know, from the internet, um, you know, try to get jobs building it. Get paid for the actual um, purposeful, useful things that you can do. Um, the product, yeah, you know, the product isn't the ads. Um, anyway, I kind of got off topic there, but anyway, so I found that in a notebook today. You know, I thought about that 15 years ago. Um, haven't thought about it much since. Um, I've got all these ideas in notebooks that some of them actually made it to fruition, and then other ones just got abandoned because I lost interest, or it no longer applied. Um, I'll read you one thing from the notebook. Here's a little saying. Remember, you can't steal something that's free for the taking. And that's generally true. If it's free for the taking, you can't really steal it. You can violate its terms of use, but anyway, that I found that they may exploit you, but that's better than death by obscurity. That's possible. I've seen that happen in at least one case. Um, Let your feelings be your guide. You will either hang yourself, or they will perhaps name you chancellor. Many fine books have been written in prison. And one more. Knowledge is free. It just needs a place to cook. Okay, that went on a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Um, I still remember the stuff in that notebook as far as the ideas, and I've actually implemented most of them in Java. Um, I did some stuff with Java back in the late 90s with Paco Nathan, and a lot of people thought that's the program that won the Loebner Prize, but in fact, the program that won the Loebner Prize was a conglomeration of Dataflex programming in the center, and then 5 executables in DOS that would be farmed out to do specific things. So the Dataflex program was a filter, and it had the kind of data structure that I described to you earlier. And the filter would recognize certain topics that it felt would be handled better by another program, and then it would farm it out to programs that were written in languages like Pascal and C++. And those programs performed very well, and it was a very good exercise in cooperative programming. The programs cooperated and shared the computer and its resources. So Dataflex would wait until it heard back from the other program, and then it would go on listening for the judge to say something, and then the judge would say something, and Dataflex would look at it, and if it thought it could reply, it would, but if it met a certain criteria of non-usefulness, it would farm out to something else. And that won the contest twice, and it turned out to be one of the most human-like programs that I've made, in that it didn't use the same formula for every response, and it rarely made a random response. That was like the ultimate last resort, to just spit something out at random. It might try to change the topic, but it usually had a reason to go to the other topic that related to something earlier said. So it seemed more like there was a person paying attention. That's something I don't see a lot of now. Some people have done pretty good with that. But that was a very complex system that you couldn't put on the internet, or I couldn't. It was too complicated. After a few years, after the Loebner wins, I went to a system that Paco Nathan wrote called JFred, which is a very nifty little Java app. It's a package that I've connected to other packages and other tools and databases and um, um, lots of other programs over the years, experimenting with it. Um, Always in the back of my mind thinking about Albert One and how that program worked, but trying to make it more open source, because JFred is open source. Um, there's a Java version and there's a Python version that Paco wrote, um, and he's worked with it some, and I have I used it when I was asked to send a program for the Royal Society in London, England. Um, that was the program I sent, was JFred, because it worked with the interface and the operating systems. Actually, they didn't care what operating system. That I ran it off my host. They accessed it over the internet and performed uh, many Turing tests with a live audience. They had people from all walks of life, and they all saw the same interface because of the MAT protocol, which is what they requested us to use. And there were 5 of us who were invited to participate. One of them, Vladimir Veselov, his program fooled 30% of the people that it spoke with that it was human, and in doing so passed Turing's prediction about passing the Turing test at this time. It's off by a few years, not many, but I consider that a huge achievement. It was derided by every little basement tinkerer in the world who thought that their chatterbot should have been chosen to participate and it would have won, or even worse, it was denounced by the strong AI folks that, believe, HAL 9000 is the answer. But I thought it was brilliant, and Vladimir's a good guy, and he's a hell of a programmer. He put his program through unit testing, and that's something that very few bot programmers get to. They're so busy tweaking and writing in chat replies and all this kind of stuff. It never occurs to them to make a bulletproof program first. But Vladimir and his team members, they did a great job. And that was one hell of a day after the news broke out that somebody had passed the Turing test, and everything shut down. Everybody that had a chatterbot just about got more traffic than they could handle, and my web services went haywire. At the time, I had several bots and several surveys and automated Turing tests and all that kind of stuff going, and it was several days before it kind of calmed down. I got a good month of traffic out of that. I was very. They paid us to participate, but I got paid again when Vlad's program beat 30%, and I just imagine a large percentage of that was people saying, "This can't be possible. I know this isn't right. You know, nobody does this, and I can't do it." Blah, 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 blah. It's tough, 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 tough. Can't beat the facts. Yeah, don't let the facts get in the way, as they are so fond of saying all over these days. There's no reason to worry about it. Um, it's just a chatterbot. Okay, that's about it for now. I've enjoyed talking with you, and it's awful quiet around here right now, and I'm going to take advantage of that and make some music real loud. Be seeing you.